My name is Stella Harrison, and I use she and her pronouns. My message is titled, Why Doesn't She Just Leave? A look at power and control. Anytime there seems to be a conversation about domestic violence, the question comes up, why doesn't she just leave? Sorry, that's the worst question in the world for many reasons. For one, it shows absolutely no compassion for the victim of the domestic violence. And also, the reason she doesn't leave, there's probably as many reasons as there are victims. The real question we should be asking is, why does he do it? And right now, I want to pause for a second. I know that men are victims of domestic violence also. However, 1 in 4 women can expect to be victims, while 1 in 9 men can expect to be victims. Using these statistics, I'm going to use he as the abuser and she as the victim. So, okay, let's see. Why doesn't she just leave? Well, one, emotional abuse has convinced her that she's worthless. She couldn't make it on her own. She's been isolated from friends and family, so where can she go? She has no money. He controls all of the finances. And what about the children? Does she take them and take the chance of them becoming homeless? Does she leave them and avoid and take the chance of the abandonment? Does she stay to protect the children? And of course, there's always that threat. If you try to leave me, I will kill you. And unfortunately, the chances of a victim being killed rises significantly when she tries to leave. And of course, there's always that promise. I'm so sorry. I promise I will never do it again. The promise that is rarely kept. So much for why she doesn't leave. The real question is, why does he do it? Why does he abuse her? Well, the answer is quite simple. Because he can. It's all about power and control. Domestic violence isn't a single fight. It's a pattern of coercive behavior and abuse used by one partner to gain control over the other partner. Too many times an abuser actually thinks that his partner or his wife is his property. He owns this person. It isn't always physical abuse either. It can take many forms: isolation, intimidation, control of the finances, stalking. Where have you been? Why weren't you home? Who were you with? And the mind games. The victim becomes confused. Someone she loves, someone who says he loves her, is treating her this way, is hurting her. Victims become ashamed and they doubt that anyone will believe them. And they begin to believe what the abuser has told them all along. It's your fault. See what you made me do? Given the prevalence of domestic violence, it's likely that many of us know someone who is directly involved. And we probably wonder what we should do. Well, probably the most important thing that we should do is to listen. No judgment, No advice unless asked for. Believe them. Maintain their confidentiality. Express compassion and non-judgmental support. Encourage them to contact a local support agency such as Harmony House. Lisa Farmer, who's the director of Harmony House here in Springfield, has told me that they're averaging 100 women and children a night. Can you imagine? Let them know that you are there for them. As I was thinking about domestic violence, it occurred to me that often we can become both the abuser and the abused. Sometimes we become our worst abuser. Power and control is an interesting topic. We think about it as one person wanting control over another person. But as individuals, we often give up our own power and control to the opinions, real or perceived, of others. One of the first things an abuser does is to start tearing down the victim's self-worth. He tells her she's ugly, she's stupid, she's fat, she can't do anything right. And before long, she believes him. We do this to ourselves too. We burn dinner, we run out of gas, we spend money that we probably didn't need to. We gain a few pounds, or maybe we just spill our morning coffee. And all at once, our minds tell us that we are so ugly, so stupid, we can't do anything right. We beat ourselves up and we take responsibility for all of the wrongs in the entire universe. The most lethal time in a domestic violence situation is when the victim tries to leave. When we allow our self-doubt to take over, we may decide that it's just not worth it. I give up. I can't deal. Suicide happens when stress and self-doubt take over. It's difficult for a victim of abuse to reach out to friends and family because they've been so isolated. They feel it is their own fault. When we become our own abuser, we tend to isolate ourselves. What we should be doing is reaching out to those who love and care for us, those who really, really don't want us to be so hard on ourselves. And they especially don't want us to harm ourselves. The effects of suffering any type of abuse can influence quality of life and general well-being for you, for your partner, for other family members. But it's especially hard on the children. You may think that they're not paying attention, that they're not listening. But let me tell you about a little boy that I knew. He and his mother had been in the shelter for several months. And I always tried to say goodbye to a woman when she was ready to leave. As I said goodbye to her, I knelt down to the little boy. He was about 5 or 6. He put his arms around me and held me so tight. And he said, "Oh, Miss Stella, this is the best place I've ever lived." It still brings tears to my eyes to think what kind of life this boy has experienced. That a shelter is the best place he's ever lived. Putting yourself back together again and learning to live again is extremely difficult, whether you're a victim of domestic violence or of self-abuse. That's when you need to reach out to those who care, those who don't see you as a loser, but as the beautiful, caring person that you truly are. Life and career goals are very important, and they're great as long as you refrain from making them musts. When a goal switches to becoming a must, then it can consume you. Failure becomes unacceptable. Even a slight setback is a reason to criticize yourself. Truly, we beat ourselves up for things that others would never even think of, let alone berate us for. And we often hold ourselves up to damn near impossible standards. Life isn't a luxury limousine ride. It's more of a roller coaster. Some days are great and the ride is smooth. And other days are take your breath away, loop-de-loop. We lap up criticism while ignoring praise. We do 100 things right and then mess up one thing, and that's what takes over our thoughts. I can't do anything right. Eventually, we'll no longer able to see the honest reality of the situation because the negative feedback has shifted your opinion of yourself to the extreme far end of any spectrum. A bad hair day becomes, I'm so ugly, nobody would ever want to be with me. Missing the answer to a question becomes, I'm so stupid, who'd want to be around me? If you're shy and reserved, you think, I'm so boring, nobody wants to hang out with me. And when you've achieved not quite what you wanted, you become, I'm such a failure. I can't do anything right. The abuser beats this into the victim's mind. And when we allow that self-doubt to take hold, we beat it into our own mind. Abuse destroys lives and families and communities. We can prosecute the abuser in a domestic violence situation, but we can't prosecute the abuser in our mind. So we have to be ever mindful to avoid letting that mind abuser in. We need to develop practices that will help us center ourselves. Perhaps a mantra that will remind you that you are great and beautiful. You are worthy in every way. I want to share with you a small verse from this book that I read a lot, Tree and Jubilee. This is by Greta W. Crosby. Once we are sure of our innate worth, something that cannot be taken from us, we no longer need to prove it in elaborate ways so often damaging to others and ourselves. Once secure in our own dignity, we no longer need someone to hurt, whole classes of people to despise. Secure in the sense of our own worth, we can enjoy and rejoice in the worth of others. We can love out of fullness instead of inner emptiness that eats others alive. Let us affirm one another as unique and irreplaceable persons. I think some words that Ruth Jenkins shared with me sum it all up very nicely. She says, existence itself is abundance. consciousness itself is magic. Remember your value and your power.